Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us to our webinar presented by GlideFast Consulting and ServiceNow, meeting the needs of students with ServiceNow. I'm Brett Carl, the VP of Industry Solutions and Alliances at GlideFast. Here with me, I have Ryan Pope, who is our Senior Architect and Director at GlideFast, and Shannon Coburn, our Global Head of Solutions and Education and nonprofit sectors from ServiceNow. So looking forward to speaking with them today on elevating that student experience. Welcome. First, I want to talk a little bit about GlideFast Consulting. So GlideFast has over 600 expert implementers in the ServiceNow space. We span every industry, specifically higher ed, but also healthcare, federal, telco, retail, manufacturing, as well as every product that ServiceNow has to offer, from ITSM to ITOM, ITAM, CSM, HR, so on and so forth. We pride ourselves on our 4.6 out of 5 CSAT score and always look to improve that. And we've actually won our Customer Workflow Partner of the Year award in 2023 and 2024 back to back. And also pointing out that we are a ServiceNow Elite Partner, fully certified in all ServiceNow platform workflows, and combined experience with all of our employees, over 3,750 years of ServiceNow experience and over 1,900 successful projects. So I want to start by looking into the higher ed space with Shannon from ServiceNow. So Shannon, welcome to the webinar. And I just wanted to start with you. Could you tell me a little bit more about your role and your focus at ServiceNow?
Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon Coburn, the Global Head of Education Solutions at ServiceNow, and still figuring out where my mute button is. I have the great privilege of getting to work with our ServiceNow education customers and partners like GlideFast. And really, my role is to kind of help align the strategic initiatives of our customers with ServiceNow's capabilities of our platform and our products. And so I came from about 20-something years of working in education, really at kind of all stages of that student journey. So I've been overseeing strategy and just leading teams that are really designed to develop products and programs and services that are going to drive student success and then ultimately institutional success. So I love having conversations like this. And then my work at ServiceNow is really just an extension of that after that many years of sort of being the voice of the customer within ServiceNow, as we started to focus on really important verticals for us. So also a mom of 2 college students, one who just wrapped up on Friday, and one who has just transferred to another school. So as a mom, I can definitely attest to the fact that these solutions are still really needed in the sector, and it's brought, I think, an interesting perspective to it.
Absolutely, and congratulations to your student graduating. That's quite an achievement. I'm sure you're very, very proud of that.
I am, and I kind of feel like I graduated as well. Any of the parents out there probably know that feeling of like, yay, how did I do? What was my GPA at the end of all of this?
Absolutely. So let's just dive into it on the ServiceNow side. What are some of the major challenges that institutions are facing today that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think higher education, probably no surprise to anyone on this call, is really at this crossroads of transformation that really began even before the pandemic. That's been a real catalyst of change in higher education, but I think that change took place before that. The sector is more competitive than ever. There are new options coming out all the time for students and families, and I think it's important to recognize that. And I, as a personal story, I can share with you, my son who just graduated, so that means he graduated from high school in 2020. And, we had college plans. We were really set on where he was going to go and what he was going to study. And I think when the world kind of came to a pause in that moment, it was a time for us as a family to sort of reevaluate. Do we still believe in the return on investment for a 4-year degree? There's so many options out there. And so ultimately, that is what we all agreed was going to be the best choice for him. But we recognize now there's lots of different kinds of learners. There's lots of different kinds of educational programs. So I think, to answer your question, it really comes into sort of 3 buckets is the way that I see it globally in higher education. One is, how do we make the most of what we currently have? How do we make most of the capital investments? How do we retain the students and the great talent of faculty and staff that we have? So I think it's kind of shoring that up, and ensuring that the institution can be sustainable. I think there's a question of how do we meet the ever-changing expectations for students and families and for our employees. And, we all know we have shifted absolutely into a consumer-driven society. People are looking for personalized experiences. So the students are expecting that. They're using all of these technologies that are really bespoke for them in terms of experience. But the faculty and staff are also, they want to make an impact, and they want to know how to do that without being bogged down by manual processes. And then I think looking towards the future, how they're asking the question of how do we adapt to secure that sustainability? How can we harness the data that we have to make data-driven decisions about the resources, about the investments that we're going to make, the risks that we're willing to or not willing to incur? What are those opportunities? Because I think ultimately, Brett, that comes down to, we're looking at a lot of changing demographics. It's not still that one size fits all kind of 18 to 24-year-old student. I think we're looking at the changing nature of work, and how higher education is better preparing people for, the future digital economy. That's, I say future, it's here. And then how are they adapting all of these new technologies? Everybody's talking about AI. I was on a call last night with the CIO of a higher education university in Australia, who was saying he's the CIO, he was saying everybody's coming to me and asking me about AI and generative AI and how do we use this for experiences? And he's like, we don't have a clear point of view on that yet. So I think all of that is swirling around higher education right now. And we're trying to help our customers address those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting, especially being at ServiceNow and being that platform of platforms, or that, workflow centric organization. How is ServiceNow addressing those challenges that you're seeing? You mentioned generative AI, and AI and other products. What's ServiceNow doing to help get through those challenges?
All of the above. We're kind of in that state of everybody right now. It's sort of everything all at once feels like a priority, which is exciting. But I think trying to navigate that with our customers is the challenge when they're getting so much information from everywhere. I think the simple answer to that is we go back to sort of the philosophy of ServiceNow, and we want to approach that from the perspective of people, because when we have been talking about for years this concept of digital transformation, it's never really solely been about the technology. It's about the people who use the technology. And so we want to really take a holistic approach that is always going to be centered on the strategic initiatives of the institution, and how do we help create great experiences that impact all of those people that are going to lead to student success and ultimately to the institution's success. And so, you mentioned kind of our platform approach. I mean, in short, that's really what we're hoping to do, is take that platform approach that allows all of those disparate systems, whether you're an online university or an on-campus university or some combination of the two. So whether it's a student information system or a learning management system, we want to be able to connect those workflows, connect that information and those processes really seamlessly. And that leads to the great experiences. And so we have, purpose-built applications really for the whole spectrum of things that happen on an institution. If there's a workflow behind it, we can help support that and help really transform that. But ultimately, it's got to work for the people who are using those technologies and benefiting from the digitization of that.
No, absolutely. And when we talk about the ServiceNow platform, it's almost a limitless possibility, right? There might be a product that you can utilize inside of ServiceNow, like HR for students, or CSM for students, or ITSM for any sort of a computer lab, or your systems in general. But when you're getting into the platform, you can really solve for anything and build anything on there. So what other capabilities has ServiceNow addressed in the higher ed space? What sort of use cases are you targeting that we have solutions for or have thought about?
Anything and everything. We have, we look at kind of the full business capabilities, like I was saying, of everything that happens on campus. And so, there's a long list, again, of these purpose-built applications that are around, asset management, whether that's hardware or software, or really like a full enterprise approach to assets. All of the gear that happens in labs and art supplies and music gear, all of that. We think about security is really a high priority for our institutions. Facility management through, through field services. How are you making sure that the capital investments that you made are going to be protected? Employee management, student services, all of those touch points across that. So I think, it's a wide variety of that, but we are always really mindful that each institution is going to enter that at a different point. So like some of the things that you had mentioned, Brett, we want to think about this from, building a roadmap with our customers. And I know GlideFast is very similar in this. That's really, again, we talked about personalization. This is what our customers are expecting, that we can help build a roadmap over the right period of time for them that's going to bring them in at the right place. And so whether that is, IT services or building out a CMDB, or if they're really focused on an employee experience or a student experience. And I think, again, just to share a personal story here, I've been with ServiceNow for 4 years, and I feel like I've gone through this shift and how I think about our capabilities and how I think about our value. And I think in 2020, when I first started, again, this is like lockdown. I'm going through my own employee onboarding completely, online, and it's all been set up for me. But I think I was so excited about the automation of all of these workflows behind the scenes. The idea that a student could ask a really complex question about something like accommodations that may have to go through a lot of different touch points in the institution, and they could get that answer, and all of that complexity was hidden behind the scene. And so it reminded me so much of the experience that we've all had where I had to order a book the other day from my book club on Amazon. I don't need to know what warehouse it's in. I don't need to know if they're sending it UPS or FedEx. I just know that it shows up in 2 days and I can track it and I can send it back if I need to really easily. And so, I was so excited about that because after 20 years of working in education and throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick to kind of move that needle on how students were doing, I was so excited about that. And then I think I was meeting with a customer who had come into our Santa Clara office, and at many of our ServiceNow offices, we have these walls with like huge dashboards, and you can see the one we have at ServiceNow is ServiceNow data. So I could see all of this information around how is employee sentiment, how is our learning and development programs progressing, what's revenue and employee retention and all this stuff. And I was with, again, a CIO of a big university who just said, how do I get that? And I think it really clicked with me then that this is actually what I wanted. I wanted to be able to see at a high level how my institution was doing and be able to drill down to a more granular level of how a specific cohort was doing, or how a student was doing through the journey, or how a new employee was faring. And I think ultimately the workflows are the first piece of that, because it brings you information that then you can start to see trends and start to use technologies like AI to make predictive recommendations about where to focus recommendations. So I think it's shifted a little bit, and it's all very connected. We talk a lot about a connected campus, but I think ultimately that's what we're trying to help our customers do, is connect that data through those workflows so that they can be more resilient in all the changes that are coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. That single source of record, single source of truth, or at least that interconnected system that ties everything together to make it seamless. That seamless integration is really what people want at the end of the day. Yeah, I think
Brett, I was just thinking like for you and I, probably, when we went to college, it didn't look like that, right? Like, were you standing in lines all the time to get physical I mean, you're not as old as I am, but again, physical signatures. I mean, this is the thing, like with 2 kids in college,
Mhm.
it's still kind of happening, and you would think this many years later it would have changed. But
Even when I went, I had to print out the form and then go get it approved somewhere. They didn't have
yeah,
that back and forth chain of custody, essentially.
yeah.
You still had that. So speaking of the student experience, I think we mentioned that as a capability. What do you think the biggest disconnect is in that student experience that exists today?
Well, I think a couple things. I think from an institutional point of view, when you say something about student experience, it tends to have this fluffy, nice to have sound, like we're all gonna hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and it's gonna be this beautiful moment. But ultimately, the people who are really invested in this understand that it's absolutely that's what impacts student revenue. And again, sustainability, the reputation of the institution, the ability to draw talent um, to your university. And so I think it really is, it's table stakes at this point, and it's a very big bucket. So you think of all of those touch points, that start well before a student ever steps foot on campus and long after they complete a program, whether they graduate or leave before completion. So it's over many years, and it's lots of different touch points. And I think one of the biggest disconnects, and I am absolutely guilty of this, but when I led teams that were focused on student experience, the thought was, let's keep adding more to it, right? If one phone number is great, let's give them 10. If one email works, let's give them, 20 of these where they can always reach us. I mean, as long as somebody's in the office and available to answer the question, and somebody else, the person with the information, hasn't gone on vacation for a week. So the intent was always really good, to keep adding options, but it's just this stack of complexity that makes it really difficult for students to navigate. So, I mentioned my daughter has just transferred into a fantastic university here in California, amazing reputation. And she was going through her all the paperwork and stuff she needed to submit, vaccination records and proof of medical insurance and her transcripts from her previous institutions and things like that. And I mean, she was in tears. She's in tears sitting on her bed and thinking, I should know how to do this because I work in it every day. And this is an elite university that, for every web page, again, they're trying to give students so much information that every page has 5 or 6 links of another rabbit hole for her to go down. And I don't think that's an unusual student experience for most incoming students, whether they're freshmen or transfer students. And so I think the more we can, again, build out those workflows behind the scenes so that we can really encourage self-service, then they do have 24/7 access to information, to use tools like a virtual agent. Ours is now enabled with generative AI through an application called Now Assist. And so it can, make recommendations to students. It can deflect those inquiries. And so what that means, when I was talking about like shoring up what you have, it means those agents, the faculty and staff members that may be leaned on for those questions that they answer, 100 times in 1 week, especially as you start to think about like fall class start, how busy things get. What are better uses of their time, and how can you reallocate those resources to really identify the moments that matter? And so I think part of that disconnect is realizing automation isn't always a bad thing, because it frees up more time for that personal experience. Again, it's about the people. It's about the ones trying to make an impact, and the students who are looking for that information and sometimes needing a hand to be held through that. So that's really our goal, is to automate the stuff that, get that off people's plates, make sure that you're constantly learning from it and getting better at it, to create knowledge articles for the most frequently asked questions. And again, sort of deflect those tickets so that the people have more time to be where it matters.
No, I think that's great. And yeah, I look at ServiceNow as creating the opportunity to solve those problems, creating that platform, creating the additional modules and products to fulfill that. But you also need to do the implementation side of it. You need to be able to, have a trusted partner for GlideFast to go through and do that implementation for our different higher ed type organizations out there that exist. Yeah, and the whole time you're talking about the student experience, I just kept thinking of the old infomercial of there has to be a better way, right? And then you dive right
Oh
in
yeah,
what that product is. Like we can't keep doing the same thing over and over because over time we've just taken the same broken process and just put it on a computer and then several computers and then
yeah.
and then
We're calling that digital transformation, that, oh, we now have, I mean, I have seen some funny stuff in the time that I worked in education, but yeah, I mean, but we've faxed it and then we printed it and then we, scanned it and saved it into a digital file. Like it's digital transformation. And um, we're not, I would say we're not still really there, but yeah, I have faxed some things recently. Unfortunately.
yeah. No, absolutely. And thank you for your insight. Truly appreciated, and it was great speaking with you. I actually did want to bring in Ryan Pope to the conversation. Ryan Pope is our senior architect at GlideFast and director, and Ryan actually helped create a application that GlideFast offers as a educational offering here called Course Navigator. And so I want to give Ryan an opportunity to even talk about how GlideFast with ServiceNow has improved or working towards improving that student experience so that not only people are happy about the onboarding process, but utilizing ServiceNow and fixing what's been broken in the past. So Ryan, I'll turn it over to you. Just talk for a little bit and then looking forward to that demo.
Great. Yeah, thanks. So we did a bunch of research trying to understand what this problem was, what that student experience was. A number of folks that I worked with to develop this had some pretty poor experiences, and much more recently than maybe Shannon, Brett, or I. So as we look at the screen here, in doing some research, there's a study with a large state university stating that 75% of students completed their undergraduate degree on time. And of the 25 that didn't, 53% didn't complete it because they transferred out. And I know, Shannon, you said that even your son transferred. And, that's loss of revenue for the school, both in tuition, but also in, the alumni donations moving forward. So our goal here was to try and take those stats and say, how can we fix this to keep the students in, improve their experience so they don't want to go look for another experience somewhere else? How can we keep them here, at one higher ed institution? So again, in doing some research, we came across a couple of course enrollment forms. You can see here, one of them just looks like a Word document. One of them looks like maybe a Google form or a Microsoft online form, and then just some antiquated look and feel screens there. One of my colleagues, Christine Hamilton, she has a PhD, and as she was wrapping that up, similar to you, Brett, she actually had to physically fill out a piece of paper that said what courses she wanted to take, and she had to physically go hand it to somebody in a registrar's office. And we're talking in the mid 2010s. So not a great experience, and one that she wishes had been a lot better. And I can speak from my own personal experience. When you do online enrollment like this, after I submitted it, if I didn't take note of what I had enrolled in, I lost sight of that. I had no idea where I stood within my learning path journey. So I just kind of got lost in the shuffle of things, and I almost didn't graduate on time because of that. And I know Christine had the same issue. So that's kind of where we're coming from. We're looking at it through that lens of how can we streamline that? How can we make it easier for the students to understand their journey, improve their experience? But at the same time, we looked to also improve upon the administration aspect of all of that, putting in a lot of automation, a lot of checks and balances in our workflows to ensure that people can't just hand things in and kind of bypass certain systems or controls that would otherwise require a lot of administrative overhead to manage. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at very quickly some of the stuff that we've been putting together to enable that student experience, give them a lens into what they're doing. And again, Shannon, you had mentioned wanting to dive into like an Amazon experience because that's what everybody's familiar with these days. So we actually had the same idea. We kind of ran with that with this like cart experience. So what we're looking at now is just my kind of profile page. Here I am, a student at a particular university. I'm able to track my progress towards a particular learning path. Think of that as like an undergraduate degree, postgraduate degree. Maybe it's a professional certification. things along those lines, where you can align just any sort of course load to, a journey. Typically with higher ed institutions, they also have this overlay of general requirements. That's where I got kind of lost in my own personal journey, is understanding what general requirements I had to fulfill within a certain time period. So we wanted to make sure that we incorporated something along those lines. So, students aren't getting lost. They don't forget, I have to do things other than just what my degree is dictating that I do. And then between Christine and another colleague, Alan Dust, they had very specialized degrees where they had additional, we'll call them milestones, whether it's like a doctoral thesis that they had to write, or Alan being a music major, he had some other course load type things that weren't class oriented, but milestones that he had to hit throughout his journey. We wanted to make sure that we incorporated that as well, so you can kind of track all of those different various tiers of things that you have to accomplish to be able to get out on time. So you'll see over here, I've got my little shopping cart here. I've got a course in my shopping cart. Again, trying to bring this course enrollment to a modern era, modern age of things that we're familiar with, and people are very familiar with shopping a catalog, adding things to their cart, and then checking it out at the end of all of that. So what we've got here is I've got a filtered down list. You'll see my filters down here. We tried to provide a bunch of filters that are very specific to what we as students were looking for in terms of how we can search for particular classes we wanted to take, whether it's I just need something that has seats available, or something that's offered this term. Maybe there's a filter based on the level of class that it was. Departmental filters, schedule filters. I want to make sure that it fits my particular schedule. And then most importantly, instructor filters. I want to look for that specific instructor that I know is going to be the easiest for me. So we've got these nice little cards here based on my filter. If I were to click into one of these, you'll see that we're provided a whole lot of information about the course itself. I can see all of the various course or class offerings that we have down here. If I wanted to do something like add this to my cart, we also have class dependencies. So in the event that you have a class like, we're looking at biology, for example, here, typically biology classes are paired. You have a lecture class, you have a lab type class. This allows us to kind of unite those two, even though they might be on different schedules. So I can come in here and select, particular class loads or a particular lab that aligns with my overarching schedule, and I can add that to my cart. Similarly, I might be looking at this and saying Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 12 p.m. Let me check my calendar to see, or my course calendar to see how that aligns with other things that I have going on. I can swipe that out here. I can take a quick look just to make sure that, Monday, Wednesday, Friday from, I think it was 9 a.m. It looks like I'm pretty free there. So I actually have that availability. So this will include things like what's already in your cart versus things that you already have enrolled in. So you can kind of see the future state, as well as, things that are already kind of in your term portfolio. I'm going to skip over to a class like this here, and this kind of ties some of the administrative overhead things that I was talking about along with that student experience. You'll see that this particular class here, there's no more seats. We can configure our classes on the back end from the administrative point of view to enable something like a wait list. With all of that comes a lot of automation, something that you really lose when you're dealing with having to hand or fax a piece of paper into a registrar's office to say that you want to take a class. If you can't get in, you might get put on a wait list. You don't necessarily know that. We've built in an automated process to cycle through waitlists as people drop out of that class, to ensure that, if I'm the first on that waitlist, I get first rights to grab that class when it becomes available through automation, with automated notifications that get sent out or emails that get sent out to the student, with particular timers that we've set. So after 24 hours, if we don't get a response from the first person, it'll cycle through round robin style all the way through your wait list. So a lot of capability there, a lot of automation, again, to enhance that student experience while also mitigating administrative overhead. I got another class here just to show you, we have just-in-time capabilities now, because we're doing all of this where we're submitting carts on the fly, or submitting for enrollment on the fly. I will see just in time that maybe there's remaining seat count here is low. I want to, rush to get into this class if it's something that I want to take. It's providing that insight that you would have wanted. And again, you're going to lose that insight if you're having to walk across campus or drive 20 minutes to the other side of a city to hand that in to the particular registrar's office that you're going to. I'm going to come back here just to kind of show more insights that we can manage and track from the student profile page here. You'll see, my current enrolled courses, so I can see everything that I've already signed up for. So beyond what's in my cart, once I submit my cart, you'll get a card reflecting all of the classes that I've actually submitted for. You'll have access to see all of your waitlisted courses here, so you can check in on them. Even though we're setting the notifications, we want to make sure that they can take action if they were to happen to be in this portal page in the moment that it becomes available to them. And then a really important one that, again, I wish I had when I was in school, and maybe I did, I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't front and center in my mind, and I didn't have easy access to go look, but just a mechanism to see every class that I've already completed. So I have that historical context to know what I've done, which is very valuable. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. You'll see that we have a blown up version of that calendar that we were looking at earlier. What you'll notice here is I actually have conflicting courses here. So we have a nice warning message letting me know that that's the case. We wanted to make sure that people have that visibility. Again, the context and insight is great. So I can either maneuver my schedule, or this empowers me to now have a conversation with my professors. Maybe I need to take these 2 classes, can't afford to not take one. Maybe it's worth a conversation to say, hey, I have, another class that I have to get done. Can we work out some sort of deal or arrangement? So this enables me to do that. Yeah, at least start the conversation by seeing that they are running concurrently. You'll also notice up here in the upper right-hand corner, there's this registrar services icon or link that will bring me to an actual catalog of services that I can, submit requests to the registrar's office or to these professors. Again, the automated nature of taking these workflows, simplifying them so students understand them, making them, a couple of clicks away, and then auto route them to the appropriate people to get, a sort of approval. Again, reducing the amount of administrative overhead of them trying to shuffle papers around to figure out where it needs to go, but make sure that the students can actually engage directly with the folks that they need to engage in. As I scroll down a little bit further, I know I showed the reports on the top showing me my learning path completion status. You'll see here, I can see that I'm dual majored at the moment here in biology and history. You'll see that I'm making progress in my biology major. I have the context of knowing what classes are required, what classes are optional in order to complete my total credit requirement here of 32 credits. So over time, again, I've got my checklist now. I know which things I need to do, which things I still have to do, things along those lines. And then, as I mentioned, the general requirements on top of all of that, and keeping track of those, we're doing a similar breakout where we can categorize those general recs and then help tally all of the credit requirements along with everything that I've done as a student to complete them. Again, just really valuable insights there. If I wanted to go down the path of understanding what learning paths were available to me, we've also built out this learning path catalog that students can come in, get a really in-depth evaluation of what it means to have that particular major, or what to expect with that learning path. I can flip this card over and I can see the actual course load that would be required for that. Again, because we want to make sure that these students are empowered to be able to self-serve. This hopefully allows for more pointed conversations with, your academic advisors, rather than just going to them complete blank slate, not knowing, what they need to do, or, what courses to look at, or what majors to even look at. They're armed with that data, but hopefully this is a more constructive way to be able to present all of that to them. I'll click in here just to kind of show some of the services that we've pre-built, just to kind of showcase that. And then I think we'll open it up for questions and answers. If you have like a general overarching course enrollment issue, you'll see that you can submit that. It's a very simple, straightforward general inquiry type thing. If there's a school that, wants to vet people, kind of submitting for a particular learning path, maybe you have that approval process that I kind of had alluded to earlier. we can bake in those automated workflows to route appropriately based on the learning path itself. We have the capability and the data structure behind the scenes to be able to manage those declarations and removals of declaration to ensure that they're routed appropriately, they're approved in a timely manner, and the administrative overhead meets student experience in a positive way. As I had alluded to, there might be some override requests. Maybe I need to take a class that I can't get into. I can request a course capacity adjustment. Maybe the seats are at capacity, but I'm hoping I can slide in an extra desk there. We can ask for that type of information. Or like in my case, as I mentioned, I was at risk to not graduate on time. I had to squeeze an extra course load in. It took me 5 or 6 different phone calls and emails to track down somebody to ask for an adjustment to my credit max and min, or my credit max, to make sure that I could overload a particular semester, to make sure that I could catch up appropriately. Again, trying to streamline that experience. Here's a single workflow to help route and guide that student through. Here's what you need to ask, and then have it route appropriately to the person that ultimately can make that decision. There's a lot of automation that we've baked into this around, the enrollment periods that we set up within this platform here. If you need to add a class for that add period, you can request something like that. Or if you need to drop a class after any particular drop period, if there's a designated time frame that you have to drop, we provide some of those like exception type service requests that we can route again to the appropriate folks to be able to manage. There's a lot more to be able to show. I know we're running out of time. I'd love to be able to showcase this more to folks if they want to be able to look at it. But for now, I think we'll go back here and open it up for questions and answers.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll dive right into the Q&A. It looks like we have some questions from the audience, so we'll go through those questions right now. First question, with this application that you built, are there any specific licenses or prerequisites that a university or school would need to have?
Okay, so we've actually built this ServiceNow product agnostic. So if you only have ITSM, we didn't want to, we didn't want to shoehorn you into needing something like CSM or HRSD. So I'm thinking at this point in time, it would just be like App Engine licensing, but more to come on that. But yeah, it is platform agnostic. There's no prerequisites at this point in time.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Our next question is, does GlideFast only work with higher ed?
GlideFast has multiple industries that we cover for manufacturing, retail. Specifically for this conversation, we're focusing on higher ed customers, and that's what we want to express that we know your industry, and we've worked with numerous customers all the way across from California to Texas, to customers in New York and Boston, alike in the higher ed space. But as far as our customer base, we have over 650 different customers across all the ServiceNow industries that they support, and looking forward to continue on building on that.
Awesome, perfect. Next question, kind of related to the first one. How many higher ed customers does GlideFast have?
Yeah, so I'd say we have right around 50, somewhere in there, 50 to 60. We have some active things that we're working right now of higher ed customers. And so those are online schools, brick and mortar schools. It just ends up, it varies, but yeah, say over 50.
Perfect. Next question, who do I contact to learn more and get a deeper demo of Course Navigator?
So for Course Navigator, you're going to want to reach out to your GlideFast representative. If you don't know of yours or don't have one, you can always submit a contact on our website, or through the webinar. I believe there's a contact email address, and we can get you that demo with Ryan Pope himself. He'll do a deeper dive and show you all the back end and integration pieces that tie into it.
Awesome. A few more questions here. This might be focused in on Ryan, but the question is, does this application handle the management of the course itself, such as creation of a new course, workflow around approving it, uploading new syllabus, republishing outlines for new academic years, etc.? All the pieces that enable a course to be made.
Yes. So everything from the terms that you're going to establish, from a probably seasonal perspective, the overarching course itself, the course offering, which would be that particular instance of the course for that particular term, where we can dive deeper into class by class everything, and then use all of that class-specific data to help generate those syllabi. And as Shannon and Brett have kind of alluded to, ServiceNow is very powerful with its workflow engine to help streamline and automate some of those approval mechanisms that you would need to take a class from, initial thought all the way through to actually being able to offer it within the institution itself.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. We have a few more questions that are coming in. Let's see. What are some applications you use to feed the information to those dashboards?
I mean, you can think of any LMS system, anywhere that you're managing your course data. We should be able to pull that data in. I know Banner is a hot integration point that we've been asked to work with quite a bit, but I've also seen other LMSs that do offer integration points that we should be able to easily pull that data in to help establish all of that information to make those dashboards work appropriately.
Okay. Another question is, does this application fit into the new Employee Center module?
We can certainly do that. Well, we started building it a while ago before Employee Center had really taken off. And in my experience, I've seen a lot of higher ed portals that are still using that portal experience. And we decided to keep it with that portal experience, namely because we didn't want to, again, kind of put people in a corner or back people into a corner if they were utilizing something like CSM to manage their student journeys. And obviously, CSM doesn't quite have that Employee Center look and feel quite yet. So again, we want to make it as agnostic as possible to fit in as many use cases as possible. So right now it's just in portal, but you can obviously take all of those widgets that we've built and migrate them into an EC experience, no problem.
Perfect. Let's see. Does ServiceNow plan to develop and sell a student module?
I can jump into this. I mean, it's always being looked at ServiceNow. Right now, we're finding a lot of flexibility in terms of using the existing products that we have to meet the needs of our customers, but certainly always a conversation. It's not on our immediate roadmap, though.
Thank you, Shannon. Is online payment available for courses or integration with partner services to offer this?
I haven't gone as far as to incorporate payment with this. That was kind of the one area that we didn't want to touch at this point in time. Presumably there are other ERP type systems or payment systems to actually handle the payment aspect. And the intention there is to integrate with those systems to pull in when the students are able to enroll in courses based on being in good standing with a particular institution.
Yep. So there's that option, and then also GlideFast does have a financial processing solution that we're actively working on. So you could do it if you wanted to, and we'd be happy to partner and work on that.
Okay, awesome. And then we have one last question here. There are off-the-shelf products that provide this functionality, especially within SIS. What was the deciding factor to build this versus buying?
In my mind, again, the whole conversation we've been having here is ServiceNow is the platform of platforms. SISs will only get you so far. And ServiceNow being a fantastic aggregator of data and information kind of gives that student a one-stop shop to see everything through a single pane of glass and to be able to interact with things through a single pane of glass. So to be able to have this course Navigator solution, overlay it with something like facilities and field management, overlay it with something like IT service management, overlay it with something like CSM for, post-graduation alumni reach out and targeted communications. There's a lot of capability within ServiceNow that extends far beyond just course management. So here we're trying to just aggregate all of that data so the student has one system to come to be able to access all of that rather than having to swivel chair from one platform to another to be able to, or to have to figure out where they need to go for whatever they're looking for.
Thank you so much, Ryan, Brett, and Shannon. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to us at glidefast.com. We'll be sending out the recording and additional resources within the next week. Thank you all for joining us.